All right, everybody. So in this video, we're going to talk about classifying quadrilaterals. Now, this is the very first video in understanding how to classify shapes. And what that means is you're going to learn how to tell the difference between different shapes. Okay? There's lots of different shapes out there, and they're all unique. They have their very own set of characteristics, just like, different people and different living things have their own unique things that describe them. So do shapes. Okay? So the first one that we're going to talk about here is called quadrilaterals. Okay? Now, quadrilaterals, let's go. Quadrilaterals are, I'm going to start with yellow here. They're super simple. They are four-sided shapes. Okay? Quadrilateral, the word quad right here, okay, means four. All right? So the simplest way to understand what a quadrilateral is, it's just a four-sided shape. Okay? Now, there are a couple things about quadrilaterals for it to be a quadrilateral, right? So one, it's a four-sided shape. That means it has to have four sides. Okay? These four sides have to be straight lines. Okay? So these four sides have to be straight lines. So there are four straight lines that make up the sides. Okay? The next thing that quadrilaterals have to have is that the shape has to be enclosed. All right? So the shape must be enclosed. All right? So what that means is that another way you can think about it is that the lines or the sides must connect. Okay? So let's just take a little look at what that could look like right here, okay? So a quadrilateral has to have four sides, they have to be straight lines, and they have to connect. It has to be enclosed. Okay, so you see how this shape has four. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, four straight lines that make up the sides. Okay. Also, I want you to notice, as a little side note here, all of these shapes that we're talking about, these are all 2D shapes. Okay. All of these quadrilaterals and eventually triangles that we talk about are going to be 2D shapes. Has four sides, they are straight lines, and it's enclosed. That means it's all completely blocked in, as opposed to something like this. Here is four straight lines, but they're not connected right here. Okay, it's not enclosed and it's not connected. That's not a quadrilateral. That's not a shape. All right, so it has to be enclosed. It has to be the lines must be connected to make the shape, and it has to have four straight line sides. All right, so that is at its basic what a quadrilateral is. Now, the interesting part here is that there are many different types of quadrilaterals. Okay, so I'll go down here and we'll look at this. We'll go down here a little bit. So quadrilateral, I'm going to write quadrilateral right here. So here's the quadrilateral, right? And this quadrilateral is kind of this big idea, or this big category, okay? This is the big category. And within this big category, there are lots of different individual shapes that are still quadrilaterals. Because remember, a quadrilateral is just any shape that has four sides, right? And it's enclosed. Four sides and it's enclosed. Quadrilateral. All right, so within this, let's take a look at this. Within quadrilaterals, there are squares, there are rectangles, there are what we call parallelograms, okay? There are one's called a rhombus, Okay, and there are one's called a trapezoid. And then finally, the last one right here is called a kite. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different shapes that are all considered quadrilaterals. They're all quadrilaterals. That means all of these 6 different shapes have 4 sides. It's enclosed, but they're different. Each shape is different, okay? So look at this. We'll look at just at a couple of them really quick. I'll draw a picture of a couple of them really quick, okay? So we have squares like this, okay? We have rectangles that look more like this. We have parallelograms, all right? Parallelograms look kind of like this. Okay, we have something called a rhombus. Okay, and a rhombus looks a little bit different. It's kind of like a parallelogram. Okay, it's kind of like a parallelogram. So I'm just going to put something kind of like, we'll go like this. And I'll tell you the difference. In the next video, we'll look at the difference between the two. These are very similar. A rhombus and a parallelogram are really similar. We'll talk about the difference between the two, okay? And then you have something called a trapezoid. Trapezoid could look maybe something like this. Okay, and then finally, we have something called a kite, which can look something like this. Kind of like the shape of a kite. Almost like a diamond, kind of like the shape of a kite, okay? So each one of these squares, you got squares, rectangles, parallelograms, rhombus, trapezoid, and kite. They are all quadrilaterals because they all have 4 sides. If you count each one, they all have 4 sides. Each side or each shape is enclosed. There are no open shapes, all right? But they each have their own unique shape, and you can see that by just looking at them. They each have their own unique shape, okay? So that's the basic idea of quadrilaterals and shapes. In the next video, we're going to look at each one of these: squares, rectangles, parallelograms, rhombus, trapezoid, and kites, and we'll look at the unique characteristics of each one and why each one is called what it is, what makes it what it is, okay? All right, so we'll go that in the next video.